Hey everyone, it's Nick with the Truck Insurance Channel, and we are back with another live Q&A. So for the next hour or so, we're going to be letting people post in the chat, and I'll answer questions that you guys have. If you need any links to anything, please let me know, whether it be our quote requests, any type of affiliate stuff, anything you've seen in prior videos, just questions, comments, concerns, drop them in the comment box, and we'll do our best to go over all of them. And we'll just give it a few minutes for everybody to start joining and get some questions in there. What I'm going to go ahead and do is link the quote request in the comments box. I can link it throughout the video if need be for new viewers, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in there for anyone who needs it. What's up, Party Bull? What's going on, man? So we got a couple people joining. So, like I said, ask questions. Any comments you guys have, any concerns, any issues you may be having, let's talk about them. And yeah. This is where you ask your questions. Just put them in the comment box, and I'll be watching them as they come through and answering them as we go. Good evening, Kelvin. Looks like we got the first question here. I'm going to throw it up on the screen here. So, question is, in terms of having insurance, my understanding is that the trucking company is fully responsible for having insurance, and the only thing the dispatcher is responsible for is passing along the information to the broker. To answer that question, yes, you are correct. You are fully responsible for having all of the insurance. The dispatcher is simply getting you the loads. They're getting those booked for you, and they will pass along your certificate of insurance to make sure the load gets booked, and you're good to go. So, Jamal, your question is you're asking on the rental rates as far as the weekly rate. Honestly, that's a tough question to answer because honestly, it's not really about the rate right now. It's about the availability. Most people are going to be renting based on what's available, not based on what the rate is. But the rates do vary from company to company. And there are certain things that can be negotiated. It's all about what you negotiate when it comes to that. Um, the better you negotiate, the better your rate's going to be, especially when we talk about, your cost per mile. So you may rent a truck at $650 a week and 23 cents a mile, but you may be able to negotiate that down to 18 cents a mile. Let me take a look here. I'll get you a link. Hold on just a second. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a link for you guys. It's a referral over to Budget Truck Rental. I know some guys have gotten really good rates for here in the southeast with budget, so that's something to check out. I just saw your question. Okay, so you are actually referring to insurance rates. So insurance rates are going to vary based on location, but what state are you located in? California. Okay. So California is actually a pretty tough state when it comes to insurance. Um, I'll tell you the national average that we see is going to be anywhere between 18,000 and 25,000 per year. That can vary depending on what coverages that you have. What I when I say that, what I'm referring to is the primary, what I call primary coverages. So that is going to be your auto liability at 1 million, your cargo at 100,000, general liability with a 1 million per occurrence, 2 million aggregate. The term aggregate just means how much they'll pay out per policy term. So throughout that year, they'll pay up to 2 million if you have what I refer to as a 1 million, 2 million GL policy. That's what I would say, should be between 18 and 25,000 per year. There are several variables that will affect that rate, from credit score to driving record to the age of the drivers, whether or not you're hiring a driver or whether or not the business owner is a driver. They like to see the business owner as a driver, so it's important that the business owner, even if not driving, has a good driving record. So we have a question here about cargo insurance and what it covers. So the $100,000 in cargo is covering what the motor carrier is, well, carrying. I mean, that's the cargo on board on the truck or in the trailer. That is what that's going to cover, what they're carrying. It's important that the insured, or the person who has the insurance, has the type of commodities listed on their cargo policy that they're hauling. You don't want to be hauling refrigerated goods but have a dry freight cargo policy, because then the refrigerated goods wouldn't be covered, for example. As far as the general liability, it doesn't cover a whole lot, to be honest with you. It's just a requirement that a lot of different brokers require. Primary broker that you probably hear the most requiring that is going to be Amazon. You will probably never have a claim for general liability, but it is there and they do require you to have it. A better, if we want to talk, we'll talk a little bit more actually about general liability. So um, I say it doesn't cover a whole lot and you probably won't ever see a claim, but for example, let's say you're loading and unloading a truck, and let's say you knock something over on the dock. General liability is going to cover that. Like I said, we very rarely, if ever, see a claim, but it is there, just in case something does happen. The main reason why I use that example is because Amazon, being the most common broker to require the coverage, you're going to be loading and unloading your own freight from their docks, so they want you to have that coverage for that reason. So we have a question more so on the broker side. So, what is the process with the insurance in the event that commerce is damaged? I'm assuming you are talking about the cargo. So let's say that a trailer gets turned over and the cargo is completely destroyed. So you need to be able to make a claim against that load. So with that being said, what you would do is you would contact the insurance company that the insured is using. You should have their certificate of insurance, so you would contact them with the policy number and the claims details. You would start a claim, and then the insurance company would handle it from there. Typically, the insurance company will contact the insured to get their side of the story on what happened, and then just like any other type of claim, you will go ahead and go back and forth and get that covered. So Driven Enterprises has a question on what's the best way to get cheaper insurance for a new startup company. Well, there's not really a specific way to do it, but again, the variables being credit score, driving record, and driver age. Those are really the only three things that you have control over. I mean, obviously, aside from you don't have control over your age, but you have control over your driving record and you have control over your credit. So those two factors are going to be the big variables there, aside from your age. So when it comes down to it, you want to make sure that your credit looks good and that your driving record looks good. If your driving record doesn't look good, you may want to look into hiring a driver. If you take that route, it's going to be, if you're going to hire a driver, you want him to be an older driver. What we call like a preferred driver would be over the age of 35. So that's something to keep in mind as well. We have a question from Rick. So, can I operate under someone else's authority and provide my own insurance? Um, the quick answer would be yes and no, unfortunately. So, yes, you can provide your own insurance, but it depends on what coverage you're talking about providing. So, if you're going to take your truck and go and lease it onto somebody else's authority, then you would be responsible in most cases for carrying your own physical damage, which is your comprehensive and collision coverage on your truck. Now, when we talk about other coverages like liability and cargo or general liability, that is responsible. The party responsible for that is the company that you're leasing onto. So, company A is who you're leasing onto. You are company B. So, company A is responsible for carrying the auto liability, the cargo, and the general liability when it comes down to who can provide what. So Kimbo 94, we have a question here. Got a quote a few hours ago from Progressive, 10,500 a year, 2019 F350, 2020 Gooseneck, 30 years old, no accidents, 700 credit. Would your company be competitive? So we are an agency. We work with different companies. Progressive is the primary company that you would go through to get insurance within your first, 1 to 2 years of business. Simply because there are requirements that need to be met to work with some insurance companies. And so it's very common to go through Progressive for your first year. 10,500 a year is a great rate. I'm not sure what they looked at or what coverages you have on there. But I mean, 700 credit, 30 years old, no accidents. That looks really good. What state are you out of? I want to touch on one additional thing here on your question, Kimbo. So, um, when we talk about progressive and we get people very often that have gotten a quote through progressive. And what we see is they end up going through customer service to buy the quote. And what happens is they have to call in to get certificates of insurance. They have to call to make policy changes, and you sit on hold for like an hour, 2 hours sometimes. I mean, I was on hold with them earlier today for that long. So it happens. Right. And so that's where having an agent comes into play. You really want to have an agent when you have commercial trucking because you need to be able to get quick responses on any information you need to provide to a broker. And unfortunately, when you go through Progressive Direct, like through their customer service, you are then at the mercy of waiting on hold for them to do anything. So that can be very frustrating. So we really recommend going through an agent. If you'd like us to quote it, we can, offer you a quote, and we can quote it with Progressive as well, with all of the same information, and take a look and see what the rate is. It may be better, it may be higher. I don't know what they quoted you, and how they set it up. So it just, we have to look at that. However, you want to make sure you get an agent. You don't want to use customer service because your life will be a nightmare when trying to book loads. Out of curiosity, so Driven Enterprises LLC versus Kimbo 904. I know you guys are sitting here talking in the comments about comparison of quotes. Very similar as far as credit, age, and type of vehicle. Um, what are your guys' location? What are the two states you guys are located in? Kimbo, I apologize. I just saw that you're okay. So you're located in Georgia. Driven Enterprises, where are you located? Alpha 333. Appreciate it. Thank you for talking to us. Thanks for joining the live again. I know we spoke earlier, so we appreciate you being here, and happy to answer any questions if we missed any earlier. Pennsylvania versus Georgia is going to make a big difference. I mean, completely different states. Every state has different rates. You've got some states where you may pay $25,000 a year. You've got some states where you may pay the 10 or 11, $12,000 a year. So we can't really compare Pennsylvania to Georgia because they're completely different states, unfortunately. Hey, Gerard, appreciate you being here. So you're out of New Jersey, is that right? Hey, Justin. Let's see. So, Justin, you said I'm looking to become a driver and later become an owner operator. Unfortunately, in 2014, pleaded to a DWI traffic violation. Can I still become a driver? Yes. The answer is yes, absolutely. You can. What I would check to see is if that is still going to pop up on your record. I mean, being 2014, it should have been long enough at this point to where, I mean, because it's been what, 7 years, depending on what month that it happened in 2014. So you should have no issues becoming a driver. Just so everybody knows, as far as, talking about Justin's question of the event he had happen in 2014, typically insurance companies in most cases are not going to look back more than 5 years. So anything that's 5 years or more, it should not show up when we go to run the MVR. Pleaded in January, yeah. So, but either way, you're still fine. It's been more than 5 years, so you should be fine. Justin, are you located in New York, or is that just where it happened at? Okay, yeah. So unfortunately, the good thing is, so the DWI is not going to hurt you nearly as much as trying to start business in New York. Um, yeah, unfortunately, New York is a very tough state to get insurance in. It's extremely expensive, if not the most expensive state to be in. Honestly, your best bet would be to move to either New Jersey or Pennsylvania. So Gerard, you paid 1,123.95. Is, I'm assuming that was your down payment. You just got started. So we have a question from Tiara. So we have do you have a connection for decent rental rates with any of the other companies besides Budget? So I have a link that I can put in the description. Well, I've got one for Budget, and then I also have one for Rider. But honestly, rates right now, like I know Penske is extremely expensive right now. Their rates are kind of through the roof, not only from the actual base rate, but also the like per mile rate, the cents per mile. I spoke to somebody earlier that was offered, I think, 1,100 a week for a 26-foot box truck and like 33 cents a mile, which that's like one of the highest I've seen, and that was with Penske. Um, Budget is really the best option right now if they have a truck in your area. So Justin, you asked about moving to Fishers, Indiana in 2022. Would it be easier there? Absolutely. Any Absolutely any state outside of New York is going to be easier than where you currently are. Um, California can also be a little bit tough, but overall, like New York and California, those are the toughest. But New York is by far the worst when it comes to getting this done. Indiana is pretty good, so that's definitely a solid plan. Hey, jealous, how's it going? All right, so Kimbo, we have another question here. So I saw in one of your videos you were talking about aging your MC the first 90 days when starting. When I start as an owner operator, I want to get out and start working. Will all brokers require a plus 90-day MC? To answer your question, no. Several brokers do require more than 90 days. However, there are plenty of brokers out there that will work with new authorities. Your best bet would be to get a dispatcher that works with new authorities as well. They'll specialize in 90 days or less on the authority, and they would probably be your best option aside from Amazon Relay. If you want to run Amazon Relay, there is no time restraint on the authority. You can start working day one as long as you're approved. So that's all there is to it. No problem, Justin. Happy to help. Down payment was 2346 for Gerard. Not bad at all, honestly. The average person that I see on the higher side of things, I would say probably is going to pay anywhere between $3,000 and $4,000 down. So 2346 is a very good number. So Driven Enterprises LLC asked about what is a good dispatch service. So we don't directly recommend dispatchers simply because one dispatcher can only handle so many trucking companies. So I would need a list of 1,000 plus dispatchers and know exactly what their workload is before I could recommend them. The best thing to do is really just to look around. I know Alpha mentioned the ones on Facebook can be a little bit shady. We've had people have success with dispatchers from Facebook. Just don't pick the first one, right? A lot of people are going to pick the cheapest option, and we live in a world where you get what you pay for nowadays. And so when it comes down to dispatchers, the ones that typically charge more are going to be a lot better than those that charge less that may be, like you said, shady. So it really just depends on who you pick, but remember that you get what you pay for. So Tiara, you said you're asking if you currently have 750,000 in liability insurance and can you lower it? So 750,000 is the minimum required limit according to the FMCSA for the weight class of a box truck. If you have a vehicle less than 10,000 pounds, like you were operating on, let's just say a small cargo van, which I don't recommend, but if you were operating on a small cargo van, you would need a limit of 300,000. So that would be one way to get your limit lower. Why exactly are you asking about lowering your limit? Hey, Jay and Jones. Let's see. Hotshot Slim. How about Hotshot Insurance? Just joined. So we handle hotshots. I mean we handle all trucking insurance. So I will put a link in the comments here for our quote form. If you get that filled out, we'll take care of getting you a quote. As far as the insurance goes itself, your standard coverages are your million in auto liability, 100,000 cargo on a hotshot. You'll more than likely be financing your truck, so you'll probably want to have physical damage on it as well, which is going to be based on the value. So if you pay $50,000 for a truck, we will have 50,000. We'll want to put $50,000 in coverage on it. Um, yeah. So, Driven Enterprises asked, is it better to go under Hotshot or truck for hire on the insurance? Well, so whether you're Hotshot or whether you are like a box truck or a semi, you are all listed as trucking for hire because you are for hire by the brokers that are brokering the loads. And so if you're asking if Hotshot would be better than doing a box truck, it might be depending on your goals. Hot shots are great. They are a completely different field though, because like a guy running hot shots is not going to be running Amazon Relay, whereas the majority of people getting into box trucks are trying to get into Relay. So it just depends on what your own goals are. I appreciate Alpha you answering the question for Party Bull. So we'll just back up to it just so anybody else that may have that question as well. So as a freight dispatcher, what's the best way to learn about this profession? Any courses you can recommend? YouTube obviously is your best friend, as you guys have learned watching through our videos. So I know Alpha mentioned the uh, Learn Dispatch Today channel. So if anyone wants to check that out. So Hotshot Slim, real quick, I'm just going to go ahead and link that. I apologize. I actually just linked the wrong link. So that is not the one for the quotes. Give me just a second here. There we go. So I just linked the link to our quote form. So go ahead and get that filled out as far as for hotshots go. But let's back up here. I want to make sure we don't miss anybody's questions. We had Miss Sunshine join in. So her question was, can I find local loads with my box truck using DOT before authority is active? Yeah. So, well, you you have to have active authority to operate. You don't have to have an MC number if you don't cross state lines. So you you don't want to operate though without an active DOT number. Yeah, so Driven Enterprises. So you have a hotshot button or quotes that says truck for hire. So hotshot is the subclass. You are a truck for hire working as a hotshot. You can be a truck for hire working as a semi, truck for hire working as a box truck for hire working as a hotshot. The term hotshot is a subclass of trucking for hire. So King Fletch asked, I have a speeding ticket and a red light ticket. Can I still get insurance? Absolutely, you can. Those violations will go against your rate, but you can still get insurance. There's not really anything that could be on your driving record that would cause you to not be able to get insurance. I mean, you can literally have a DWI and still get insurance. It's just the rate is much higher. So, I mean, you can still get insured. It's just whether or not what the rate's going to look like. Speeding ticket and a red light ticket is not nearly as bad as like an at fault accident. So, definitely, I wouldn't be too concerned with those two. Tiara asked about the rider link. Yeah, here I'll drop that for you now. Give me just a second. All right, so there is the rider link. So, Kelvin, your question was: is it a good idea to start the insurance with the minimum FMCSA requirements and then raise your limits? It's honestly up to your own financial situation. So it's not necessarily better. It's not any worse. The benefit to starting with lower limits is simply you are going to have a lower down payment. Keep in mind the money that you save on your down payment when we go and bump the coverages up is then going to be broken up over your monthly payments. So by saving money on your down payment, you're making your monthly expenses higher. If depending on where you're at in your own financial, life, it's when it comes to your bills, depending on where you are, it may be fine to add a couple $100 a month to the monthly payment, but it may not be for the next person. So it's up to your own individual situation. Essentially, starting with lower limits is just saving you money on the down payment to then break it up over the monthly payments. So it's totally up to how you want to do it. So yes, you are correct. It must be active in order for you to work. And then, Kelvin, one other situation I want to touch on this one more time. So, on starting with lower limits, if you're going to get started immediately and you have the funds for the down payment, I'm going to say go with the full coverages to keep your monthly expenses lower. That's my personal opinion. Now, let's say that you are getting your authority active, but you may not have a truck. Let's say you're renting a truck and you may not have availability immediately. So it may be 2 weeks, before or a week before you're going to be operating. It may be better off, in your interest to start with the lower limits, because then you're not paying for the higher limits when you're not working. So, we can lower those limits to get started if you're not going to be working immediately. That's really the only example aside from not having the money for the down payment where we may want to start with lower limits. Yes, yes. So we do cover Alabama. Make sure I did not miss anybody's questions up here. All right, so it looks like I don't think we've missed. If we missed your question, please let me know. I believe we have answered all the questions we currently have. All right, so we have a new question from Alex. So Alex's question is as far as what state to register insurance in, what if I have a house in two different states? Which one do I need to register in? Alex, the best answer I can give you to that question is where your license is at. So, which state out of the two that you're licensed in is where you would want to register. We want everything to line up. The insurance company wants everything to line up as far as addresses and states go. So you don't want to live in North Carolina. Let's say I've got a house in North Carolina, I've got a house in South Carolina, right? But I have a North Carolina license. It would be in my best interest to start the company in North Carolina, not South Carolina, unless I planned on getting a South Carolina license down the road. Miss Sunshine, I want to back up on this question because I think there was some confusion here when we were first answering this question. So, with the active authority and an active MC, active DOT, if you are running within state lines, you do not have to have an active MC. You need a DOT number, but you do not have to have an active MC to work within state lines. To cross state lines, the MC must be active. You still need a DOT number, but you don't have to have an active MC when working. And the authority is referring to the actual MC, the motor carrier number. So I just wanted to clarify that. No problem, Alex. Thank you for being here. Do we have any? So I'm seeing some new viewers come in. Do we have any new questions? So the as far as let's talk about what activates the DOT number. So there are a couple things that you want to accomplish within the 21 days. So from the day you apply, you have a 21-day waiting period in order to actually go active. The things that you need to have done are your insurance needs to be in place. So the insurance company sends what's called a federal filing. The federal filing is what it will actually activate the DOT number. But in the meantime, while you're getting your insurance quotes, there are two other things you want to do as well. You want to file your BOC3 because that is also part of the requirements to go active, and your UCR registration. So you accomplish those three things, and then after that 21-day mark has surpassed, then you will go ahead and be active. And that is 21 calendar days, not 21 business days. So let's see, Hotshot. We have another question from Hotshot Slim. So, can I still get a quote without active MC? So to go back to Mrs. Sunshine's question, so you actually can't have an active MC unless you have insurance in place. So yes, you can get a quote without having an active MC. You actually can get a quote without even having a DOT number. You don't have to apply for a DOT number before getting a quote. We recommend that you do simply because it's going to give us the most accurate quote. However, if you're just trying to get a roundabout number and you want to get some quotes done, you can do that without having an active MC and without applying for the DOT number. Perfect. So you're good to go then. All you got to do is make sure that insurance in place is in place. When it comes to the insurance, we recommend going ahead and paying your down payment and getting the policy active on the either the 18th or 19th day. So that way you are going active as close to that 21 days as possible. So Enterprises asked, you have 90 days before your numbers are canceled. So I'm going to clarify the question. So what you're asking is how long do you have to be able to get your MC active after application? That is correct. It is 90 days. We have seen people get letters in the mail though. around the 60-day mark saying that they need to have insurance in place. Not really sure where that's coming from at this time because 90 days is the standard. That is how long you have to have everything in place. But we have seen some of those letters go out. So just keep that in mind. That's perfect. So good job. Congratulations. You are ready to get on the road, it sounds like. So we had a question about do we have a rider plug? Okay, so you're about to scale up. You need two more rental trucks. You live in Minnesota. Still checking if rider or budget will be decent. Rider has some newer trucks though, and a mileage cap. So newer trucks are more expensive. The mileage cap isn't the greatest, so that there's something to consider there, depending on how far you're trying to go. With that being said, I would really look at it more based on availability. I can drop a link to help you get more info about Ryder and get something set up with them, but I don't have anybody that can just get you a truck. If I did, there would be thousands and thousands of people in this live. And what I'll go ahead and do for you is I'm going to link the our affiliate link to Ryder real quick for you. All right, so let's back up here just a second. We have a question from Kelvin. So, does the DOT number go active at the same time as the MC number? Yes. So if you have completed your carrier application, you've got your DOT, you've waited your 21 days, you've completed your BOC3, your UCR, and your DOT number, or sorry, and your insurance down payment, then yes, the federal filing will be sent and they will go active at the same time. So we have a quote from Devin Harrison. Or a question, sorry, from Devin. He asked, "What is a good factoring company?" So we recommend RTS. Um, we look at when we talk about recommendations, we want to hear from our customers. We want to make sure that we're recommending the best of the best. And RTS has been fantastic. We've never had anyone have complaints about them. And so that is who we would recommend for not only factoring, but fuel cards as well. If a fuel card is something you're interested in, I would highly recommend it. It'll help you tremendously, being that fuel is one of your, most your highest expenses. So that's who we would recommend going through. I will drop a link for you now to RTS if you'd like to check them out. Go ahead. So Patron T, he asked, can you use the rental company, truck, and insurance for the authority to go active? No, you cannot. You can obviously use the rental company's truck to go active. I mean, that's who you'll be renting from. That's the truck that you'll be using and operating with. But their insurance will not activate your DOT or MC number. It is not sufficient. There is no federal filing attached to their insurance. So you do need an actual policy in order to go active. You mentioned also that you have RTS fuel cards applied on phone a few days ago, came through $3,300 a week credit. That's great, man. Congratulations. Yeah, no problem, guys. No problem at all. So we have one more question here from Miss Sunshine. So we have off-topic question: do box trucks have to stop at way stations when empty slash off duty? Well, it's recommended to stop at way stations. As far as empty versus off duty, they're not really going to know that you're necessarily empty or off duty. It's not going to hurt you, let's say, to go through a way station. So let's see. If product is damaged and insurance was canceled for any reason, what happens? Who is responsible for paying for these damaged goods? So it's going to depend on when the incident occurred. So, for example, let's say that my insurance canceled on September 1st and I had a load booked for September 7th and I took that load. Then from there, the insurance is not in place. The insurance is not going to cover the goods because the insurance was not active. As far as who is responsible for paying these damaged goods, more than likely there will be a lawsuit involved, because it's going to be a head butting competition on who's going to pay. Miss Sunshine, we're actually working on a video that's going to talk more about way stations, specifically. If you want to be on the lookout for that, we'll be going over all the ins and outs of everything. So that's a really good question, right? Would the driver be held responsible? Um, yes, but who is going to hold that driver responsible, right? So that's where court is gonna come into play. So it's like okay, let's say that you're the dispatcher, right? So you're dispatching the load. You are supposed to know that their insurance is active or not. You're verifying that via a certificate of insurance. So if you verified that their certificate, and their insurance is active, then yes, it's going to fall back on the driver. The driver obviously shouldn't be operating when they know their insurance is canceled. But again, it's going to go to court most likely. So we have a question here about starting out with a sprinter. So can I start out with a sprinter van that is rated at 10,000 pounds for my authority and switch over to a box truck later down the line? In short, yes, absolutely you can. You can go from a sprinter van to a box truck and then from a box truck to a sprinter van and then from a sprinter van to a semi. It's totally up to you what you want to do. But you absolutely can go back and forth between those vehicles. I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time, of course. You want to try to pick one and stick to it, but you absolutely can start somewhere and change that later down the road. Okay, guys. So we have about 10 minutes left here in tonight's live. Let's get any last questions that we have over the next 10 minutes or so. And let's make sure we answer as many as we can here. So Driven Enterprises asked, do you actually save money having a CDL running a non-CDL setup, or do you only save money with a CDL setup? There is a CDL discount. It's based on the policy. It's not necessarily based on what you're running. Now that is particular to Progressive. Not every company is going to give you a discount for having a CDL. That's just one of the discounts that Progressive offers, and it's talked about a lot because Progressive does write the majority of all of these new ventures. So the trick is though, you need to have the CDL for 2 years. And it also does depend on location as well. They're not going to offer that discount in every state, but it is always something good to mention. If it's not going to hurt you at all to have a CDL, but in certain states, you are going to get that discount as long as you've had it at least for 2 years. And it also let's talk actually let's just briefly talk about the 2 year CDL thing because that comes up a lot. And a lot of people think it's from the day you get your CDL permit, but it's not. It is from the day you actually get your actual CDL issued, not the CDL permit. So if you have your CDL permit for 6 months or a year, then your actual 2 year CDL is not that following year. It's going to be 2 years from when you actually got the full CDL issued, not the permit. So this is just one example of how important feedback is to us. So Tanny Logistics Group mentioned that he factored a couple $1,000s today with RTS, submitted all of his documents before 12 Eastern, and got same day processing and gets paid the next day. So we love to hear this stuff, guys. And if we don't only want to hear the positives, we also want to hear the negatives. So if you ever have any issues, please let us know. But this is just another example of why we like RTS so much. Devin had a question, so let's take a look here. So when driving over the road, do you have to stop at way stations to get weighed? And would I be able to have my daughter or passenger ride with me? So I don't want to answer the first part of that question simply because, like I said, we're working on a video strictly about way stations that's going to be coming out soon. So just be on the lookout for that because we're going to go over all of the ins and outs when it comes to a way station. As far as having your daughter ride with you, um, with that, it can be a little bit touchy. You can have a passenger. There are some insurance companies that will require you to have them listed as a driver if they are going to be a passenger. But you can have a passenger. And you do, I mean, to answer the first part of your question, you do need to stop at way stations. But again, we are going to be having a full length video for that. So Driven Enterprises, you asked the same question previously. So Devin had just asked just a second ago. I know we answered it, but yes, you can have a passenger with you. All right, guys. So we got about 5 to 7 minutes left. Do we have any final questions? No problem, man. Appreciate you joining the live tonight. And just got a question, guys. Would you like to see these live Q and A's be weekly, bi-weekly? I mean, what do you guys think? All right, so we have a couple additional questions that just came in. So we have with being able to switch vehicles, do I need to file for one vehicle or two vehicles when starting to file my MC/DOT? So it's based on the number of active vehicles that you will have on the road at any given time. So if you're going to be switching between two vehicles, for whatever reason you may be doing that, that would be still one vehicle at a time on the road. If you're going to have both vehicles operating at the same time, then you need to select two. So the number of vehicles need to match the number of active vehicles on the road. Is there any reason why you're going to be wanting to switch vehicles? So we have a question from Rick. Did I understand this correctly? You must have both MC and DOT numbers to operate interstate. Yes. The MC number is what allows you to operate interstate or over state lines. Intrastate within the state is just a DOT number. Driven Enterprises, he said, yeah, he'd like to see them more live, so we'd be happy to do them. We're trying to get a pretty good schedule set up for this. I know we did one last Tuesday, and so now we're here on Thursday, planning to do one next week as well. So as long as you guys keep coming with questions, we'll keep doing them. On the switching of vehicles, are you, let me make sure I clarify this. So are you renting vehicles and talking about having to switch them out, or do you own two vehicles? If you own two vehicles, you need to have them listed. So the term is all vehicles owned or operated under the business must be listed. Guys, we've got just a couple more minutes left. So any final questions? I'm going to go ahead and since we're coming to a close here, I just for those of you that have joined, if anyone is needing a quote from us, I'm going to go ahead and drop that link one last time here. So we have a question from Ms. Magillis Gamer. So you're asking about what in the amount of what insurance do you actually need to operate for Amazon Relay? So the coverages that you need are 1 million in auto liability, 100,000 in cargo, general liability in the amount of 1 million per occurrence, 2 million aggregate. Those are the three coverages primarily that you will need to be able to get approved for Amazon Relay. So Hazard's Hauling, we have a question here. Looking to open my own authority. What would insurance in New Jersey look like for my first year compared to PA? It's really going to be hard to tell, man. There's not a huge deviation from state to state when we're talking about that. They're really about the same for the most part. What's going to be the determining factors are your credit score, your driving record, and your age. Those are really the three big things. New Jersey and Pennsylvania don't have a huge difference in cost. I will say though, as far as New Jersey versus PA, you will find that you'll see a lot more agents in the Pennsylvania area versus the New Jersey area. New Jersey is a very political state, so unfortunately, you'll see a lot less agents there. Perfect. So 38 clean driving record, 760 credit score. Your rates should look pretty good. Guys, we are going to go ahead and close out the live or come to a close here for tonight. We'll be making a post about when the next one will be. It will be one day next week. More than likely, it will be on Thursday. However, it could be an earlier day, but we'll make a post about it. So just keep an eye out for that. And we are going to close out this evening. I appreciate everybody coming to the live and asking the questions. I hope that this was a learning experience for you and that things are a little bit more clear. Um, and I am going to answer this one last question here, real quick. So, you own a Sprinter van now. You just want to get the MC and DOT number process started. So, you can go ahead and complete your application, and that'll start the 21-day waiting period. So, when you're filling out the application, just make sure that you're selecting the option for the correct weight class for your Sprinter van. There are some Sprinter vans that are over 10,000 pounds. There are some that are less. So just make sure you are selecting the right option there. Um, Devin, I know this quick question from Devin. Where do you go to list your company? What are you asking about as far as listing your own company, like your company, or are you asking us about our company? Thank you, Miss Sunshine. Appreciate you being here. Appreciate you sitting through with live with us and asking questions. And guys, make sure you check out the description. This video, so they're actually all of our lives are recorded and posted. You'll be able to see in the description box. You can request quotes. You can request calls. So we do free consultation calls. Feel free to go and schedule a call for some more one-on-one questions. Quotes, affiliates, anything you need really that we've got in the description box. If there's something you're looking for that we don't have, you're welcome to also email us and we'll do our best to help out. Yep. So Tanny Logistics Group asked about consultations. Yes, we do. We do the consultation calls. You can schedule as many calls as you'd like. The link will be in the description once the live is closed out. And Devin, where exactly are you trying to list your company? What are you? I mean, are you? I would recommend setting up a call. Let's talk more one on one about it because I'm not really sure exactly what you're asking. So I'd like to get some more details from you. All right, guys. So we are going to go ahead and close out. Again, I appreciate everybody coming. Check out the description box once we close out here, and check out those links. And if you guys need any help at all, please schedule those calls. I mean, that's what we're here for. We're happy to help you with anything we can. All right, guys. Have a good evening.